This is Jeremy Turner, and on behalf of my colleagues Olin York and Tricia Ball with the Brad D. Smith Schools of Business at Marshall University, it's a pleasure to join you today. And for today's agenda, we'll be looking at business models, business modeling, and the lean canvas. And we'll do that by digging into the three crucial jobs of an entrepreneur. We'll look at business model basics. We'll take an overview look at the lean canvas. We'll discuss problems worth solving and customer segmentation. In addition, we'll talk about how you get started, and we'll give you some next steps. So let's talk about the entrepreneur's job. Every single entrepreneur has three crucial jobs or three crucial responsibilities in order to derive success out of their efforts. Firstly, they need to create value. In business, there's something called an exchange of consideration, where if I'm the entrepreneur and you're the customer, I'm giving you something of value and expecting something of value in return, namely your money. And so firstly, an entrepreneur has to create something of value that someone else would want to buy. Number two is the entrepreneur has to deliver that value in some way. So I can have a great product or service that creates tremendous value, but if I can't get it to you as the customer, or if you can't come to me and get it, then it really doesn't matter. So number two, the entrepreneur has to deliver value as well. And thirdly, in order for this to really be considered a business venture, the entrepreneur must recoup value. So this is the second half of that exchange of consideration I talked about just a moment ago. Entrepreneurs must receive something of value in return for what it is they're providing to create value. And in order to be a successful business, the value recouped must be more than the outlay, more than what the entrepreneur is paying out. So what is value and how does one create value? We'll take a look at that in the next slide. Value in a definition is the perceived importance, worth, or usefulness of something. It could be anything. And for our example here, then this value is determined by the customer, not the entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we can guess at what this value might be. We can hypothesize, but in the end, our customers have to determine whether something is valuable or not, and if it is, then how much value might they assign to that? Now, price and value are not the same thing. They are related. For example, if we are given two options for a product, product A is more expensive than product B, we might assume that product A is more valuable. But how is value actually derived to begin with? Well, value in a nutshell is all about solving a problem. Value is created when problems are solved. So the more meaningful a problem is when it's solved, that equates to greater value created. So an example would be if you have a cure for a chronic disease, then that would be of extreme value versus something that might be a minor irritation, such as a product that helps you keep your shoe tied, for example. And there are some best practices that exist for how entrepreneurs can solve meaningful problems, because again, this is all about solving meaningful problems. And so you've got to find a problem that's worth solving in order to create a solution that creates value. Let's take a look at that now. So a best practice really revolves around creating a business model. You may have heard of business plans, you likely have, but let's talk about business models. Now, this is described as a framework that has related elements. So for a business, the business model is a framework that has related elements related to that business. Think skeleton or think DNA. In an organism, the DNA informs how that organism behaves, how it looks, all its various attributes. Within a business, the various elements of the business model describe and define how value is created, for example, how customers are served, which customers are served, the competition that exists, how your product or service is different than the competition, various key resources that you may find important and how those are used, certain crucial relationships within your business, how you choose to engage your customers, and your various strategies, so your channels and strategies for engagement, how you spend money and how you make money, for example. So those are some of the various elements that are related to the framework of a business model. A business model is part of a business plan. And in order to have an amazing business plan, you've got to have a very solid business model upon which the business is based. Now let's talk about business modeling as a process. So in order to devise your business model, it's a very intentional process, a process where you map out the various core elements with an understanding that each of the core elements impacts one another. Think if your business were a pond. If you drop a stone in the middle of that pond, then ripples radiate out from where that stone was dropped. And in that same manner, the various elements of your business model, one impacts another. So it's like the rippling effect. If you change one element of your business model, it's going to have an impact on the various other elements. So each element represents an assumption, a guess, a hypothesis, or a set of hypotheses that have to be tested. When you make these assumptions, they'll remain assumptions until they're tested and either validated. And if you test your assumption and you can prove with some certainty that you are correct in your guess, then you continue on. If, however, you test and invalidate or disprove your hypotheses, then you have to make some sort of adjustment to your business model. Understand that business modeling, it's a highly iterative process. As you learn new things, you make adjustments. You do the best you can based on what you know at the time, and the best way to learn better is to go out and pose hypotheses, test them, see what you've learned, and then make adjustments as needed. And when it comes to business modeling, there are various tools that you can use to very intentionally map out the various elements of your business. We're going to talk throughout this competition about the lean canvas. This is one visual mapping tool. It's based on the business model canvas that you may have heard of. You can certainly do a quick Google search and learn more about the business model canvas. It's an earlier version of a business modeling canvas tool. The lean canvas, again based on the business model canvas, it's a one-page modeling worksheet that's devised as a visual mapping tool. Right in front of you on a one-page worksheet, you can map out the 9 component blocks of your business model. So you can get all of your ideas, all of your hypotheses out of your head onto paper and begin to see how they line up to form your business model. And you can begin to see how one element might impact another element. The lean canvas is especially designed for very early businesses, those that are still an idea, those that may be formed yet haven't earned much, generated much revenue, those who have maybe generated a little bit of revenue. But it's best for those very early stage businesses. And it's ideal for what's called the lean startup methodology, where you seek to move forward very quickly without spending a ton of time, money, or other resources, where you pose hypotheses, you test them, and you move forward very quickly. And as far as quickly goes, this entire process, this canvassing process, should be completed rather quickly as well. When you have a blank canvas in front of you and you seek to take your business idea, dump it out onto your tool, your map there, it should be completed in plus or minus 20 minutes, 20, maybe 30 minutes. Could be a little longer, could be a little shorter, but that is really the sweet spot for completing a canvas. It should absolutely not be a 3-day process, a 3-week process, 3 months, or 3 years. The whole idea behind this canvassing process is that you should move quickly so that you can get beyond your early guesses, early assumptions, go test these hypotheses, get the feedback you need so you can make adjustments that will save you a ton of time and money and various other resources later on by learning what you need to learn early in the process. This entire process is highly iterative. So when I say that the canvas should be completed in 20 minutes, that's just the first iteration. You will go through many iterations of the lean canvas as your business continues to grow and evolve, as you work through the learning process of posing hypotheses, moving forward, testing them, seeing what you've learned and making adjustments accordingly. Now let's take a look at the lean canvas and some of its various segments. As you can see here, the canvas is carved up into 9 boxes, and several of the boxes have a couple of different elements within them, but there are 9 boxes in total. You've got the problem, and you've got the existing alternatives for how people are currently solving that problem. You've got the solution box that describes what solution you're offering. You've got key metrics, which is all about how do you count your success? What do you measure to determine whether you are successful or not in whatever way that you describe and define success? You've got your unique value proposition, which is really all about describing why it is that other people should care about your product or service. And you've got your high-level concept. This is sort of an X for Y description of your product or service so that others might gain a better understanding of what it is you're offering by using a known brand as an example. So it's the YouTube of something or the Facebook of something like that. You've got your unfair advantage, which describes what it is that's special about your organization that would keep it from being copied or overtaken very easily. You've got your channels, which describes how you will seek to engage your customers, how you will find them, and how they will find you. These could be digital, they could be brick and mortar. There's a variety of different ways that you can engage customers. We'll talk more about this as our process goes along. You've got customer segmentation. This is the subset of the total available population that is a target for your product or service based on common problems. We'll talk more about customer segmentation in a minute. And within the customer segments, you've got a subset of the various segment called the early adopters. And again, we'll talk more about this in a minute. But you also got the very basic elements of business. You've got money spent and money earned. And so throughout this process of the West Virginia Innovation and Business Model Competition, we'll be walking through each of the elements on this canvas with you in greater detail. But we're going to start here. So for the sake of getting started in earnest with this competition, we're going to challenge you to start with these 2 outside boxes, as you'll see highlighted on your screen here. The problem box and the customer segment box. So let's take a deeper look at that. So everything that you do in forming a business for the sake of this business model competition in general, it starts with a problem. And a problem equals some measure of pain or discomfort that's felt by someone else. It could be a very great level of pain or discomfort, such as a chronic illness or disease. It could be a minor inconvenience, something such as the problem solved by a Post-it note. These entrepreneurial ventures often begin because the entrepreneur, him or herself, has a problem. And there's a certain amount of passion that revolves around solving this problem. So, you know, this process of creating a business from scratch, from your mind and your heart, pouring it out on paper to see how the various elements look and designing the business to actually launching it and growing it, it's tough. If anyone tells you that it's not, then I would beg to differ. And so with that, it's extremely important that entrepreneurs find a problem that they're passionate about solving, that they're willing to grind on for a very long time, because as an entrepreneur, if you're not really passionate about the problem, as various roadblocks occur, as various setbacks happen, then it's very easy to give up and move on to something else. So find a problem worth solving that you can be passionate about. And you want to find others who have the same problem. This is your customer segment or your customer segments. As a business, if you don't have others who are also facing the same problem to whom you can deliver your value, then you really don't have much of a business. So you've got to find that there are others who share the same problem. And so finding a problem worth solving requires empathy, observation skills, and research, among other things. And empathy is really the very intentional act of seeing and feeling the world through the eyes of other people, recognizing that other people have emotions and not judging them for their emotions, for their feelings, communicating that you understand how they're feeling, and it's more than sympathy. So it's a very practical skill to have in general in life, absolutely crucial to have as an entrepreneur. So empathy. Observation skills, taking note of what it is that you see around you every day and being able to describe that. And research. You can use the internet for a great deal of research. You can check out things on YouTube. YouTube is far more than cat videos. You can use Google or some other search engine using keywords to dig in and begin to learn more about a problem and about the current alternatives that people are using to solve problems. So empathy, observation skills, research, great for help working towards finding a problem worth solving and then learning more about that problem. When you can learn more about the problem that you're seeking to solve, then you can gain these deep insights. And these deep insights equal deep understanding. Deep understanding equals the ability to create meaningful solutions. It's extreme value. When you have meaningful solutions, that equals desirability for your business, and it also equals revenue, because when you are able to solve a problem worth solving, when you're able to provide a meaningful solution to something that is causing pain or discomfort in the life of someone else, they're going to be willing to give you money for it. So again, can't stress this enough. Find a problem worth solving and find a problem that you can fall in love with, one that you're passionate about. For the sake of this competition, here are some suggestions to get you started. Some problem areas, some example problem domains that you can stew on a bit to see if you can find problems worth solving in any of these. So there are 10 listed here on the screen. These are things that relate to topics around your campus, problem areas around your campus, or in this instance, while we're operating from a distance, perhaps around your home, your hometown. But consider this as an example, these 10 domains of transportation, technology, housing, food and beverage, entertainment and social, safety, extracurriculars, classrooms and physical spaces, academics, and funding or finance. Take a deep look at one of these topics or a couple of these topics and run through the exercise that we're going to go through on the next page and see if you can find a problem worth solving that you can be passionate about. And so the exercise that you'll run through when you pick a topic or a theme from the prior page, this is called the bug list. So select a topic and list as many things as you can about that topic that bug you. Something that bugs you is equal to a problem, a concern, an issue. And so the first couple within this exercise, the first couple of things that bug you about transportation or about safety or what have you, the first couple will be easy. Challenge yourselves to go deeper, go beyond the first 3 or 4 or 5 and see if you can populate a list of 15, maybe 20. And the reason being, the reason you're going to want to come up with a greater list is deeper insights. You can begin to see patterns. You might see commonalities among problems. Really what you're seeking to find is a true underlying cause, a true underlying problem, not a symptom. So challenge yourselves to go deeper, go past 1 or 2 or 3, and pick one of the topics from the prior page, see if you can populate a list. And then based on your list, This is really about choosing a problem we're solving. So based on the list that you've generated, this bug list, how many problems could you identify? Could you get past the first 3 or 4 or 5? Could you get to 10 or 12 or 15 or 20? Something to consider is if you can't get past 2 or 3 problems, then maybe you need to select a different problem. Maybe you need to suggest or select a separate topic, one that maybe has more problems, one that maybe you're more familiar with. Don't be afraid to start over. So how many problems could you identify? And of those problems, how many of those were top-level symptoms that if you were to say, well, why is that a problem, then you could dig deeper and find that there's actually something that causes that symptom to occur. And of your problems, how many were underlying problems, sort of the bedrock upon which you could build a business? And of the various problems that you've identified, is there a single problem that feels fundamental? Sort of this linchpin concept that if you were to solve this problem, all the other problems would be gone, would go away, would be moot. Is there a single problem that resonates most with you? Again, back to that passion piece. If you aren't passionate about solving the problem, then you need to move on and find another problem to solve. So ask yourselves, is there a single problem that resonates most with you? And does this problem seem to be somewhat widespread? Can you reasonably expect that there's more than yourself who experiences this problem? So for the sake of this exercise, select one problem from your list that you'll dig into more. Now, based on your chosen problem, let's dig in. How are people currently dealing with that problem? So as an example, let's say that you've identified some health-related issue, and with people and their desires to solve that problem, they can choose either a good way to solve that problem or address it, or a bad way. An example of a good way would be the use of a competitor product or a competitor vaccine. A bad example would be to simply ignore the health condition and expect that it's going to go away on its own. So what you'll want to do is take the problem that you selected on the prior page and consider how are people currently dealing with that problem. And again, think from both a good perspective and a poor perspective. Human beings are inherently known for poor judgment at times, so don't judge anyone. But think about how are all the various ways that people might be currently dealing with the problem you've identified. And again, this is going to require some empathy, trying to see the world through the eyes of other people. It's going to require some observation. Perhaps you can go out in the world around you safely, of course, and observe how other people are currently dealing with the problem. You can use research. You can get on the internet. You can go to the library if it's open. There's various means of doing research. You can talk to people. You can do surveys. There's various means of doing research that you can leverage to gain deeper insights. But again, you're going to want to work to deeply understand the problem that you've selected, because in this instance, knowledge is power when you're able to apply it. And we'll talk about how do you apply this knowledge as we move through our process. But first, you've got to gain the deep understandings by going beyond your own basic understanding of what it is that you know about the problem. Okay? Now, let's talk about customer segments. So you've named a problem and you've populated a list of how people are currently solving that problem in both good and not so good ways. So now it's important for you to consider who else is bugged by the problem that you've identified. Who else shares this pain or discomfort? And you're going to want to be as specific as you can when you're naming who it is that also shares this pain or discomfort. This is called segmentation. So you're taking all the billions of people that are out there in the world around us, and you're beginning to carve them up into smaller portions that are called segments. These segments can be created by using a couple of different characteristics here. As you see on the screen, you can use demographics. So you can segment by age or income or gender or ethnicity, for example. You can use geography, climate, population density, physical location. These are different ways that you can use geographic segmentation. You've also got psychographic segmentation, which looks at values and personality traits of those that you're trying to segment. And you've got behavioral. This is activity-based, and this is about buying patterns and the like. So here are 4 different ways that you can segment the population, and you may actually use more than one of these characteristics to segment. But when you're looking to select a segment and describe a segment, this group of people has to be large enough to matter. It can't be you and your 3 best friends. It's got to be more than that. It's got to be more substantial, or else you do not have the basis of a business. You've got, at best, you've got a hobby. So everyone is not an option either. So you cannot say that everyone should want your product. That's not segmentation. That's far too general. And for reasons that will make even more apparent as we walk through our process, just know that everyone cannot be an option for your segment. And you could have multiple groups. There could be multiple segments. There could be multiple age groups that would be interested in your product or service, for example. There could be multiple physical locations or multiple climates. There could be people who buy your product very often or ones who buy it twice a year. So understand that there could be multiple customer segments that you are hypothesizing would be interested in your product or service. For the sake of this exercise, run through this, see how many segments, real segments you can come up with, and then select one upon which to focus for now. Within customer segments, you're going to want to pare this group down just a bit and get down to what's called your early adopters. What you see on your screen is something called the diffusion of innovation curve. It's a bell curve that looks at behaviorally, how is the total population divided up based on buying behavior, based on when would they purchase a brand new product or service. And you'll see on the left side, you've got the first 50%, on the back side, you've got the back 50%, and you've got different segments within this bell curve. Starting at the very beginning with innovators, that makes up about 2.5% of the population. And these innovators, these are the people that will buy something new simply because it's new. Just past the innovators are what's called the early adopters. And these are folks that are a bit more discerning than the innovators and are extremely attractive for you to get to know and leverage for reasons that we'll talk about on the next slide. Early adopters are a subset of your customer segment. And they're in that second phase of product purchasers, as you saw on the prior screen. And these folks are extremely influential. These are the folks that have some influence or some sway over others. In your life, you may have someone that when they buy something new, they like to tell you all about it. Or maybe it's someone that you look to see what is fashionable. So these are the folks that have great influence on others in their lives. They often have high social status and are considered this quote-unquote thought leader. People go to them and ask their opinions on things. They're oftentimes very active on social media, and they'll share reviews of products that they love, and they'll also share reviews of products that they hate. And so because of their social status and their high level of influence, when they share a review of a product or service that they absolutely love, it can begin to take off. Other people will see this, they'll be influenced by this review, and they'll think that either in favor of what this person shared, they'll agree and go purchase the product, or they'll recognize that this person that they hold in high esteem didn't really like this product or service, and so they'll assume they probably shouldn't like it either. These individuals tend to have a reasonable access to disposable income so that they can actually afford to purchase your product or service. And they're oftentimes highly educated as well. And the education is not always formal. They could just be very knowledgeable in a particular area based on their life's experience. And they do tend to make somewhat informed decisions. They won't necessarily marinate on whether to buy a new product or service for years, but they will do some initial research and dig in a bit so they can make a somewhat informed decision. They tend to have a moderate approach to risk. They're okay with some measure of risk, maybe not as much as the innovator, but they will take on the risk of trying a new product or service very early in its life. And so you want to determine who are the early adopters within the customer segment that you've identified, because you're going to want to test your ideas with this group. Because if they approve, then others will approve as well. So determining who are the early adopters for the customer segment that you've identified is extremely important towards getting early feedback that you need to test your hypotheses and either validate or invalidate them, and then make adjustments as needed and move forward through the process. So some next steps for you as we move towards wrapping up. First, find a problem worth solving. We've talked about that through our presentation today. So work through the steps to find a problem worth solving. And once you've found one that is meaningful, that you can be passionate about, list out the current alternatives for how people are solving that problem now. Consider who else has that problem from a customer segmentation standpoint, and then select a customer segment with which to start. Define the early adopters for the reasons I just shared a moment ago, so that you can test your hypotheses with them, and deploy empathy and observation and research to better understand the problem. That is an ongoing thing. It's not just for these early steps of this process. Maintain empathy, observation, and this research mindset so you can continue to gain a better understanding of the problem. Because again, understanding equals deep insights, and these deep insights inform meaningful solutions. We'll get into how you devise a meaningful solution in an upcoming module. So from here, anyone that has questions, you can visit the competition website at marshall.edu/West Virginia Innovates, WV Innovates. You can, if you do not find the answers to your problems there, you can contact your institution's competition team. And from there, either your institution's team will contact us, or you can feel free to reach out to us if you still have questions that have not been answered from the competition website or your institution's competition team. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.